The sky was a flawless blue, unmarred by clouds, as soft classical music drifted over the garden. White rose petals were scattered across the freshly mowed lawn, catching the sunlight like snow. A live string quartet played beneath a white canopy, each movement graceful, rehearsed. 300 guests, dressed in designer gowns and tailored suits, faced the flowered archway where the ceremony was moments away from beginning. It looked like a perfect day. But one man didn't look convinced. Nathan Hale. In his custom-cut gray tuxedo, the heir to Hale Biotech stood tall but tense, his fingers twitching as he adjusted his sleeve for the 5th time in a minute. His smile was tight, almost strained, and his eyes flicked again toward the horizon, as though waiting for something he couldn't name. Then it happened. Whoop whoop whoop. The low, rhythmic chop of helicopter blades pierced the music like a knife. Heads turned. Guests shaded their eyes, confusion sweeping through the crowd as a black helicopter appeared over the treetops and descended toward the estate's private helipad. This wasn't planned. Nathan's hands dropped to his sides. His knuckles went white. The helicopter touched down, wind tearing through the delicate floral arrangements. Petals blew across the lawn like a soft storm. Musicians froze. Waitstaff stopped in their tracks. Cameras clicked. Then the door opened. A woman stepped out. Sienna Brooks. Dressed in a crisp white pantsuit, her posture unshakable, her eyes unreadable. Her heels clicked against the stone path as she walked forward. Behind her, 2 small children followed, twins. A boy and a girl, maybe 5 or 6, their clothes immaculate. But what silenced the crowd wasn't the entrance. It was their eyes. Both children had the same striking amber eyes as Nathan Hale. People gasped. The bride, Camille, poised in her couture gown, froze in place, her bouquet slipping slightly from her hand. Beside Nathan, his best man, and the company's CFO, Ethan Cross, turned pale. Nathan stood paralyzed. From the front row, his mother finally broke the silence, her voice trembling. "They have your eyes." And in that instant, the entire illusion unraveled. What happened 6 years ago? Before we jump in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. 6 years earlier, the world saw them as untouchable. Nathan Hale and Sienna Brooks were the golden couple, brilliant, beautiful, and utterly inseparable. Nathan, the polished CEO-in-waiting of Hale Biotech, had turned his father's rigid pharmaceutical empire into a sleek, modern powerhouse. Sienna, a renowned biochemist, had already been recognized twice by medical journals for her groundbreaking work in immunotherapy. Together, they were the future of science and legacy, wrapped in a storybook romance. They met at a global health summit in Geneva. Nathan had been the keynote speaker, Sienna the quiet genius behind a cancer drug prototype that had just entered trials. He called her mesmerizing. She found him arrogant. But by the time they flew back to New York, they were already a unit. Their wedding, held in the very same garden 6 years ago, had been intimate but no less elegant. There had been candlelight, jazz, and laughter that echoed under the stars. Guests still talked about it, calling it the union of 2 minds that would change the world. And for a while, it felt like they would. They traveled often, London, Tokyo, Cape Town. They hosted charity galas for children's hospitals and cancer research. They worked side by side in the same building. Nathan would leave sticky notes on her microscope, Sienna packed him lunch in biodegradable containers. It wasn't flashy. It was real. Solid. Shared dreams and quiet mornings. But then Ethan Cross returned. Nathan's childhood friend. Brilliant in numbers, charming in boardrooms, and quietly ruthless when no one was watching. When he was hired as CFO of Hale Biotech, Sienna had smiled and congratulated him. But something in her shifted, just a little. She couldn't explain it at the time. A shadow that followed her down corridors, a glance held a beat too long. And then came Camille. Ethan's younger sister. Ivy League educated, gorgeous in the way only someone born into money could be, and recently added to the PR team at biotech to freshen up the brand's image. Sienna had tried to be polite. Camille tried harder to be close. And Nathan? He didn't notice. Or maybe he chose not to. Then came that one night. A gala for pediatric oncology, where Nathan had too much champagne and Ethan pulled him aside for a serious conversation. "She's cheating on you, man." Nathan laughed at first. The idea was absurd. Sienna didn't even have time to cheat, she was working on a project that could save thousands. But Ethan insisted. He showed Nathan photos, grainy but suggestive. A man entering a hotel. Sienna's name on a reservation list. A blurry text message that read, "Last night was risky but worth it." Nathan didn't sleep that night. He didn't confront her. He didn't ask. He followed her the next day. She went to the lab. She went to lunch alone. She worked. She smiled at the security guard. She was the same. And yet, something in Nathan cracked open. When he came home early and saw a man's watch on the kitchen counter, he didn't ask whose it was. He exploded. Sienna stood barefoot in their hallway, eyes wide, utterly confused as Nathan yelled. Accused. Raged. She tried to speak, but he wouldn't hear it. Ethan arrived, just in time, with more proof. A printed hotel receipt. An anonymous email. More blurry photos. "I didn't do this," Sienna said, voice shaking. "Nathan, I swear to you. You know me." But Nathan wasn't listening anymore. He called security. Told them to escort her out. She stood there in her nightgown, lips parted in disbelief, one hand instinctively cradling her stomach, though she hadn't told him yet. Not yet. It was raining that night. Cold. The kind of rain that seeps into your bones and makes even the strongest heart shiver. Sienna sat in her car outside a 24-hour pharmacy, her hands shaking around the wheel. She was alone. Rain tapped steadily against the windshield as Sienna stared at the neon glow of the pharmacy sign. Her fingers clenched the steering wheel, knuckles pale under the dashboard light. Her hair was still damp. Her nightgown clung to her skin. The storm outside hadn't let up, and neither had the one inside her. She didn't cry. Not yet. Not because she wasn't broken, but because something in her refused to give Nathan, that victory. Her mind raced. The photos. The accusations. The look in Nathan's eyes, not of doubt, but of disgust. He'd already decided she was guilty. He hadn't asked. He hadn't needed her side. Her phone buzzed. She looked down at the screen, only to see the error. No service. She checked her email. Locked out. She inserted her company access badge into the backup keycard reader in her purse. Red light. Denied. She opened her bank app. Frozen. It was all gone. Every tether to her life, snapped in one night. No home. No money. No job. No voice. And then came the nausea. It rose suddenly, without warning. She opened the car door just in time, stumbling into the wet pavement as her stomach turned itself inside out. A few strangers passed by but didn't stop. Her breaths came fast. Shallow. Her hands shook violently as she climbed back into the car. It wasn't just stress. It wasn't just heartbreak. A thought crossed her mind, so wild, so impossible, that she dismissed it. But it came back. The last time she had felt like this was 8 weeks ago. Around the time she and Nathan had decided to start trying. She reached into the glove compartment and found a few crumpled bills. Maybe enough. She entered the pharmacy, dripping, hollow-eyed, and picked up 2 pregnancy tests. Back in the car, she waited. The results blinked to life. Positive. Both. Sienna's chest collapsed inward. Her mouth opened in a silent sob, but no sound came out. She covered her face with both hands, trembling under the weight of it. She wasn't just alone. She was pregnant. She curled onto her side in the back seat, pulling an old jacket over her legs. Rain continued to drum against the glass. Morning came too soon. She drove nowhere, really. She didn't know where to go. Not to friends. Not to colleagues. The people in her circle were Nathan's circle now, or Ethan's. People who had seen the headlines and already chosen sides. But still, she had to try. She pulled into the garage of Hale Biotech's downtown building. Walked past the security desk, face pale, stomach clenched, hope in her eyes. "I need to see Nathan," she said. The security guard looked apologetic but firm. "Ms. Brooks, I was told not to let you up. Just tell him I'm here. Tell him it's urgent." The guard made a call. And then returned. "He said you know why he won't see you. And that any further contact should go through legal channels." Sienna didn't speak. She just turned and walked out. But as she passed the elevator bank, she caught a reflection. Ethan Cross. Standing behind a glass wall, watching. Expressionless. It was there in his eyes. That flicker of satisfaction. He knew. He had done this. By nightfall, she was parked behind a Walmart off the highway, curled into the back seat of her car. She hadn't eaten. Her account was frozen. She had nothing left. A week later, in a free clinic on the edge of town, she had her first ultrasound. "Congratulations," the technician said gently, turning the monitor toward her. "You're having twins." Sienna stared at the screen. Two tiny heartbeats flickered like stars in the dark. Her breath caught. She should have felt joy. Instead, she felt terror. But beneath that, deep beneath the fear, something else stirred. Resolve. The clinic was quiet when Sienna stepped out into the dusk. The paper printout of her ultrasound was still clenched in her hand, damp from the pressure of her grip. She sat on a bench just outside the sliding doors, the crinkled image of her unborn twins resting on her lap like a fragile promise. For the first time in days, her body wasn't shaking. Not because she felt safe, but because something inside her had shifted. She was done begging. Done hoping someone would come save her. No one was coming. So she would save herself. She drove aimlessly that night, her gas tank teetering near empty. Sleep-deprived and running on nothing but stubbornness, she parked under a flickering street lamp behind a grocery store. She curled in the back seat again, but sleep didn't come. Instead, she threw up. Again. The retching echoed in the quiet lot, until a light turned on in a nearby apartment window. A woman stepped out a few minutes later, a robe tied loosely around her waist. She approached slowly, cautiously. "You okay out here?" the woman asked. Sienna couldn't answer. Her mouth was dry, her body weak. The woman took another step forward. "You're either pregnant or you've got food poisoning. Either way, you shouldn't be alone." Her name was Miriam Hart. A retired hospice nurse in her 60s. Widow. Her daughter had died from ovarian cancer 2 years ago. The grief still lingered in the corners of her voice, but there was a warmth there too. Something steady. Familiar. Miriam didn't ask too many questions. She just opened her door. That night, Sienna slept in a warm bed for the first time in weeks, in the room that had once belonged to Miriam's daughter. A bookshelf full of novels. A photograph of 2 women on a beach. A quiet hum of life that wasn't broken. The next morning, Sienna thanked her and prepared to leave. But Miriam handed her tea and said, "You're not going anywhere until you can walk 3 blocks without passing out." Over the next few days, Sienna regained some color. She washed her hair. Ate toast. Slept. Miriam asked few questions, only occasionally offering bits of quiet wisdom over steaming mugs of chamomile. When Sienna finally shared what had happened, Nathan, Ethan, the lies, Miriam didn't gasp. She just nodded. Let them think they buried you, she said softly. They forgot you were a seed. 2 days later, Sienna took her wedding ring to a pawn shop. It was a simple platinum band, no engraving. Worth less than it looked. But enough. Enough to buy a used laptop. Enough for prenatal vitamins. Enough to hold her over while she figured out what came next. She sat up in the corner of Miriam's sunroom, surrounded by ivy and books, and started building a timeline. A digital trail. Every meeting she had attended, every internal memo she remembered. Emails Ethan had forwarded to her. A pattern began to emerge. She found an inconsistency in the testing reports from the hailed biotech cancer trial. Numbers that didn't line up. Side effects minimized. Data manipulated. The project she'd been pulled off without warning weeks before Nathan turned on her. The deeper she dug, the clearer it became. They hadn't just betrayed her. They'd silenced her to cover their tracks. Ethan hadn't targeted her out of jealousy or spite. He'd done it to remove the only person who could have noticed what he was doing to the data, and who had access to the patients involved. Sienna stared at her computer screen for a long time. She thought of the patients. The children. And she thought of her twins, growing inside her, unaware that the world had already tried to erase their mother. That night, sitting by the window with a blanket over her shoulders, Sienna whispered to the darkness. Your father didn't believe in us. But that's okay. One day, he'll know exactly what he threw away. She didn't know how yet. But she would make them see. Not through revenge. Through truth. And power. Finding a job while 6 months pregnant with twins and a resume that had been quietly blacklisted across the industry wasn't just hard, it was nearly impossible. Sienna sent out dozens of applications. She tweaked her cover letters, downplayed her title at Hale Biotech, emphasized volunteer work. At interviews, the moment recruiters saw her swollen belly, their expressions shifted, polite, regretful, dismissive. A few didn't even bother to hide it. One man smiled and said, impressive credentials, but I'm afraid we need someone more agile. Sienna walked out without a word. But inside, her rage simmered. It was Miriam who eventually connected her with Dr. Reina Torres, a physician who ran a community clinic 2 hours outside the city. The clinic served uninsured and low-income patients, mostly immigrants and the elderly. It was underfunded, overworked, and clinging to survival. Reina met her in the back room of the clinic, over half-eaten granola bars and stacks of paperwork. I know who you are, Reina said. I've read your research. And I know what Hale Biotech did to you. Sienna tensed. I also know, Reina continued, that I can't afford to pay you what you're worth. And you're visibly pregnant with 2 future world changers. So I won't ask for more than you're willing to give. But if you want a lab, I have one. It's small. It's outdated. But it's yours. Sienna blinked. The weight of the offer settled around her slowly, like a coat she hadn't worn in a long time. I want it, she said. And just like that, she stepped back into the world. At the clinic, she wasn't CEO wife Sienna. She wasn't the disgraced scientist or the betrayed spouse. She was just someone who cared about results, about lives, about what medicine was supposed to be. She began analyzing patient data again, starting with follow-ups from recent cancer patients who had been placed on a medication, one that she immediately recognized. A Hale Biotech product. The pattern was subtle but undeniable. Liver complications. Elevated toxicity levels. Side effects grossly underreported in the company's official documents. Sienna took notes obsessively. Cross-referenced every symptom, every dosage, every chart. One evening, she sat with Reina in the dimly lit lab behind the clinic. A single desk lamp glowed above them. This, Sienna whispered, pointing to the charts, is deliberate. Someone doctored the trial data before FDA submission. This isn't just negligence. It's fraud. Reina leaned back in her chair. You sure about that? I would bet my life on it. Reina hesitated. then pushed aside a curtain behind her and revealed something Sienna hadn't expected. An insulated room. Cool, clean, filled with modest but functional lab equipment. Machines humming quietly. Freezers. Microscopes. Centrifuges. The real deal, just scaled down. "I've been collecting tools from old university auctions for years," Raina said. "Didn't know what I was building, but now I think I do." Sienna stepped inside the lab, breath catching. It was small. It was old. But it was hers. From that moment, the days and nights bled together. She barely noticed her swollen ankles or the ache in her back. She worked in silence, poring over blood samples, rechecking records, confirming what she already knew deep down. The drug Hale Biotech had fast-tracked to market was flawed. Dangerous. Possibly lethal. And the only person who had tried to raise the alarm had been silenced. Her. The anger returned, but this time it came with clarity. Focus. Control. She wasn't going to yell. She wasn't going to send letters or threats or demand apologies. She was going to build something better. Something stronger. Something they couldn't ignore. 2 months later, in a quiet backroom of the clinic, surrounded by women who had become her family, Sienna gave birth to twins. Liam and Isla. There were no photographers. No press announcements. No father pacing nervously in the hallway. But there was Miriam holding her hand. Raina standing at her side. And a quiet, steady voice inside Sienna's chest that whispered, "We're just getting started." She stayed home for 2 weeks. Then she returned to the lab with both babies and bassinets beside her desk. And the research continued. Day by day, breath by breath. She was tired. But unstoppable. The name came to her one sleepless night, long after the twins had fallen quiet, their soft breathing filling the small room beside her desk. Sienna sat in the glow of her laptop screen, a spreadsheet open, half complete. Phoenix Biolabs. A name that meant rebirth. Not just for her, but for the kind of science she believed in, transparent, ethical, human. She shared the idea with Raina the next morning over burnt toast and instant coffee. "I want to launch a research lab. Not just to expose what they did," Sienna said, "but to build what they failed to. Real solutions. Real accountability." Raina didn't blink. "I've been waiting for you to say that. You know what it takes?" "Everything I have left." Raina gave her a long look, then nodded. "Good. Because you're going to need it." The paperwork took weeks. The first filing fees came from her pawned jewelry and a grant application Raina had forgotten she submitted years ago. Her proposal was simple, a platform for open-source cancer research, focused on affordable treatments for vulnerable patients. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't corporate. It was revolutionary. Sienna registered Phoenix Biolabs using her maiden name, Dr. Sienna Brooks, not to hide, but to start clean. Without Nathan. Without the weight of Hale Biotech on her name. The logo was drawn by hand, 2 wings, rising from the ashes of a broken helix. Within 3 months, she had her first breakthrough, a synthetic compound that targeted cancer cells more efficiently than the Hale drug, without the severe side effects. It wasn't a cure. But it was safer, and it was promising. When Liam and Isla turned 2, Phoenix received its first FDA clearance for clinical trials. By then, the lab had grown from one dusty backroom to a full floor in a repurposed community center. Scientists who had quietly left their posts at major pharmaceutical companies began reaching out. Former patients offered testimonials. Donors came from unexpected places, activists, grassroots groups, even a few anonymous insiders who believed in what she was doing. The press began to notice. Former Hale Biotech scientist launches disruptive startup focused on ethics-driven research. Phoenix Biolabs promises affordable, transparent cancer treatment model. But one article changed everything. It ran on the front page of a national science journal. "The Phoenix rises, Dr. Sienna Brooks challenges industry giants with data and heart. And there, in the body of the article, was a quote that made Nathan Hale's name go cold. "She was the best mind I ever lost," said an anonymous former Hale biotech executive. "And now, she's going to be the one who buries us." The moment the article hit the headlines, Nathan stormed into Ethan Cross's office. "Who is this?" Nathan demanded, holding up the paper. Ethan didn't need to read it. He had already seen it. Phoenix Biolabs. Small operation. Grassroots. Nothing we need to worry about. Nothing? Nathan snapped. "She just got FDA clearance. That drug, it's ours. It's our formula. It was built on the trial she designed." "No," Ethan said, a little too fast. "It was reworked. And anyway, Sienna Brooks isn't working alone. She's still using data from when she was with us," Nathan growled. "We could lose our patents. Our contracts. The board's already asking questions." Then came the final blow. One of Hale Biotech's major clients, Mercy Care Hospitals, publicly ended their partnership, choosing to license Phoenix's upcoming treatment instead. $30 million. Gone overnight. Nathan went silent. Ethan tried to regain control. "I can handle this. I'll reach out. Buy her out if we have to." But Nathan didn't respond. He was looking at the names at the bottom of the Phoenix article. The trial team. The lead scientists. And then he saw it. Liam and Isla Brooks. Their faces in the photo, standing beside Sienna. Smiling. His breath caught. Amber eyes. His eyes. For 6 years, he had believed Sienna lied to him. Betrayed him. Disgraced his name and vanished. But now, standing in his office with his entire legacy crumbling beneath his feet, Nathan Hale finally asked himself the question he should have asked years ago. What if I was wrong? And worse, what if they were mine? Nathan didn't sleep that night. He sat alone in his study, the article on Phoenix Biolabs still open on his tablet. He zoomed in on the photo. Sienna stood in the center, holding a microphone. On either side of her, the twins. The boy, Liam, had his serious expression and slightly slanted brows. The girl, Isla, was beaming, dimples flashing, hair curling at the ends just like his had as a child. He could no longer pretend. They were his. And he had thrown them all away. For hours, he went back through old memories he had buried, the night Sienna stood in the rain, begging him to listen, the forged hotel receipts Ethan had waved in front of him, his own silence when she tried to speak. At the time, he had believed it was strength. Now, it felt like cowardice. By sunrise, his lawyers had everything they needed. He wanted the truth. All of it. Private investigators were hired. Digital footprints reconstructed. Deleted messages recovered. Within days, the story unraveled like a pulled thread. The hotel receipts? Fake. The witness statements? Paid off by Ethan's shell company. And the clincher, Ethan had logged into Sienna's email the night before Nathan kicked her out, using access credentials only an executive would have. It was a setup. A trap. And Nathan had walked straight into it. He felt sick. But the worst was still to come. A whistleblower from the clinical trials contacted Phoenix Biolabs through an anonymous server. The message was brief but damning. Hale Biotech had submitted falsified data to the FDA under Ethan's direction, cutting corners to fast-track the drug that was now under national scrutiny. It was bigger than betrayal. It was criminal. And Phoenix had the data to prove it. Sienna knew the truth. And now, the world would too. There was only one date that mattered now, May 15th. Nathan's upcoming wedding to Camille had been rescheduled, ironically, to the exact day Sienna had been thrown out of his life 6 years ago. He didn't pick that date. Camille had. She thought it was symbolic, a clean start. but now, he couldn't ignore what it really was. A grave marker. And Sienna? She hadn't forgotten. In her modest office at Phoenix, Sienna stood with Raina, watching the final report load on screen. It was done. The proof of data manipulation. The cover-ups. The forged timelines. Every signature Ethan had approved. Every thread that led back to Hale Biotech. Neatly packaged, time-stamped, irrefutable. "Are you ready?" Raina asked. Sienna looked out the window. Across the street, Liam and Isla played in the courtyard under Miriam's watchful eye. Their laughter rose faintly through the glass. Sienna nodded. "I'm not doing this for revenge," she said. "I'm doing it so they grow up knowing their mother didn't stay quiet." Raina studied her. "And their father?" Sienna didn't answer. Not right away. Finally, she whispered, "He deserves to know. Not for his sake, but for theirs." She began to plan the moment carefully. DNA test results, verified and court-admissible, were tucked into an envelope. The data files were shared with federal regulators, timestamped for May 15th. A team of legal advisors prepared statements. And Sienna made one final phone call, to someone she hadn't spoken to in years. An old friend from her first research fellowship, now an agent with the Department of Justice. The plan was set in motion. And on the morning of May 15th, as the guests gathered in the same garden where Sienna had once stood as a bride, a sleek black helicopter lifted off from a private airfield. Inside, Sienna sat between her children. Liam was fidgeting with his dress shirt. Isla peeked out the window, eyes wide with excitement. "Mom," she asked, "what are we doing again?" Sienna smiled faintly, adjusting her daughter's collar. "We're going to return something," she said softly. "Something that was taken from us." As the helicopter sliced through the sky toward the estate, the wind behind it carried not vengeance, but truth. And the reckoning was just moments away. The wedding was already in motion when the guests began to murmur. They were seated beneath ivory canopies, sipping champagne and adjusting silk ties. The air buzzed with heat and perfume and the low hum of pre-ceremony chatter. Camille stood inside the bridal suite, rehearsing her smile in the mirror, unaware that outside, the sky was about to split open. Nathan stood at the altar in a tailored midnight blue suit, hands folded loosely in front of him. The string quartet had just begun to play when the sound hit. Whoop whoop whoop. The music faltered. Heads turned. A sleek black helicopter appeared just over the tree line, descending toward the private helipad at the back of the estate. Wind whipped through the canopy, scattering petals and napkins. People stood up, shielding their eyes. Phones came out. Murmurs swelled. Camille stepped outside just in time to see the aircraft touch down. From the passenger door stepped Sienna. White pantsuit. Hair pulled back. Calm as stone. On either side of her were two children, dressed in matching formal wear, eyes wide but steady. Amber eyes. Nathan couldn't move. His body had gone still, rooted, like he was watching a ghost walk across the grass. Guests began to whisper, first softly, then louder. "Is that her? That's his ex-wife. Those kids, look at their eyes." Ethan Cross, standing just behind the groom, went pale. Camille froze mid-step. Sienna walked directly toward the altar, the children trailing behind her with quiet grace. She stopped just feet from Nathan. A breeze lifted the edge of her jacket. "Hello, Nathan," she said evenly. His lips parted, but no sound came out. She turned to the crowd, lifting a slim envelope in her hand. Her voice carried, clear and controlled. 6 years ago, I was thrown out of this house with nothing but the clothes on my back. Pregnant. Alone. Silenced by lies. Today, I return not for revenge, but for the truth." She looked at Nathan. And then gently to the twins. "This is Liam. And this is Isla. They're your children." Camille gasped. Nathan's knees nearly buckled. Ethan stepped forward, voice tight. This is not the place. Sienna's gaze snapped to him like a blade. Oh, I agree, she said coolly. The place would have been a courtroom. But you made sure that never happened. She handed a folder to a woman standing by the garden gate, Reina Torres, dressed in black, quiet and composed. Reina moved through the aisle, distributing printed reports to journalists and industry guests. FBI agents entered from the side path. Quiet, efficient, unnoticed at first, until one of them addressed Ethan directly. Mr. Cross, we have a warrant for your arrest. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Ethan tried to bolt. Two agents caught him before he could clear the aisle. Camille backed away, horror dawning in her eyes. What is this? Nathan, what is going on? Nathan stepped forward slowly, gaze never leaving Sienna's face. Is it true? He asked, voice hollow. All of it? Sienna nodded. Every word. He looked at the twins. Isla blinked up at him. Liam looked down at the grass. They've known about you their whole lives, she said softly. But I never told them your name. I didn't know if you deserved it. His chest tightened. The weight of everything he had lost, the moments, the birthdays, the stories he was never part of, it crushed him. I didn't know, he whispered. You didn't ask, she said. Silence fell like a curtain over the garden. Camille stood alone at the altar now, veil trembling in the wind. Nathan turned to her. I'm sorry, he said, voice rough. I can't do this. Not like this. Camille didn't respond. She simply turned and walked away, leaving her bouquet behind. The string quartet didn't resume. The ceremony was over. Sienna stepped back, her hands gently guiding Liam and Isla toward the waiting car. But just before she turned away completely, Nathan called out. Wait. She paused. He walked up to the twins, dropping to one knee. His voice broke when he spoke. I don't expect you to forgive me. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But if you'll let me. I'd like to try. Liam hesitated. Then gave a small, careful nod. Isla grinned. You look just like the picture I drew. Nathan laughed softly through his tears. For the first time in 6 years, he reached out, and they didn't pull away. And as the helicopter lifted off again, carrying nothing but paperwork and the shattered remains of a lie, the world began to learn that Phoenix Biolabs wasn't just a story of comeback. It was the story of a woman who had been erased, and then rewrote herself into something unstoppable. The garden had emptied quickly after the FBI led Ethan away in handcuffs. The whispers of the guests lingered like the echo of a storm, shocked, unsettled, embarrassed. What was meant to be a wedding had unraveled into a public reckoning. But in one quiet corner of the estate, a different kind of silence settled. Nathan knelt on the grass, eye to eye with the children he had never known. Isla had already wrapped her arms around his neck, unbothered by history. She was warmth, pure, forgiving, open-hearted. Liam, however, remained still. He clutched the cuff of his blazer, watching Nathan carefully. Not angry, just uncertain. His stare was old for his age, the kind that had seen too much too soon. I don't expect you to call me anything, Nathan said gently. You don't even have to talk to me. But I want you to know, I see you now. And I want to try, if you'll let me. Liam didn't say anything at first. But after a long pause, he nodded once. Not a full acceptance. But not a rejection either. Sienna stood a few feet away, watching. Her arms were crossed, but her eyes were soft. Later that evening, Nathan asked to speak with her alone. They sat in the old conservatory, the same place where they had once planned their future. Now it was a shell of memory, and yet strangely quiet, like a place that had been waiting to be reclaimed. Nathan cleared his throat, hands folded between his knees. I know I can't undo what I did, he began. I believed Ethan. I didn't even give you the chance to speak. I let them erase you. Sienna didn't interrupt. She let him sit in the weight of that. I don't want excuses, she said. Not now. What you believed, what you chose to believe, shaped everything. I had to raise our children in hiding, in fear, in shame that wasn't mine. He nodded slowly. I deserve all of that. And more, she added quietly. Silence passed between them. Then she exhaled. But they deserve a father. A safe one. A present one. I want to be that, he said. Then earn it. It wasn't forgiveness. But it was an open door. In the following days, as headlines exploded with Hale biotech scandal and Phoenix Biolab's triumph, a quieter story unfolded behind the scenes. Nathan stepped down from Hale Biotech's board and began cooperating with the federal investigation. He gave full access to all internal documents. The company's stock plummeted, but Phoenix's rose like a tide. And then came Sienna's proposal. She didn't want to destroy Hale Biotech, not if it meant hundreds of employees would lose their livelihoods, or patients would be left stranded without access to care. That wasn't justice. Instead, she proposed a merger. Phoenix Biolabs would absorb the research division, with full oversight. Raina would lead medical ethics and compliance. Hale's toxic legacy would be dismantled from the inside. The board fought it until Sienna presented the numbers, the legal liabilities, and the public support. They agreed. The press dubbed it the Phoenix merger, a symbolic resurrection of everything Hale Biotech had once stood for, now led by the woman it tried to silence. At home, things changed more slowly. Nathan began visiting the twins weekly. At first, it was awkward. Isla always jumped into his arms, Liam usually sat in the corner and observed. But little by little, the distance softened. He helped Liam build a model volcano for science class. He took Isla stargazing at a local observatory. He never missed a school recital, or a doctor's appointment, or a birthday again. He didn't try to replace what was lost. He simply showed up for what remained. One evening, while folding laundry, Sienna sat beside Raina on the porch. He's trying, she said. Raina raised an eyebrow. And how do you feel about that? Sienna looked out at the twilight, where the twins were playing tag under the string lights. I'm not the same woman he left, she said. And he's not the man I married. But we're not enemies anymore. Raina nodded. And what about the new guy? Sienna smiled faintly. David Torres, Raina's son, had been quietly present throughout the chaos. He wasn't flashy or insistent. He made tea when she forgot to eat. He read to the twins when she was stuck in meetings. He fixed the leaky faucet no one asked him to. He didn't rescue her. He stood beside her. And that was enough. Later that night, Isla crawled into bed beside Sienna, holding an old photo. It was of her parents, Nathan and Sienna, on their wedding day, years ago. Will you ever marry Daddy again? Isla asked, eyes wide. Sienna stroked her daughter's hair. No, sweetheart, she said gently. But we'll always be family. Just, in our own way. And Isla, satisfied, fell asleep in her arms. The past had broken them. But the future? The future was theirs to build. What did this story mean to you? Sometimes, the deepest betrayal can become the fire that shapes something greater. Sienna didn't just survive, she rebuilt, she exposed, and she showed the world that silence is not weakness. What would you have done in her place? Do you think Nathan deserves forgiveness? Or was it too little, too late? If this story moved you, drop a 2 in the comments. If you think Sienna should never look back, drop a 7. And if you want more stories like this, don't forget to like and subscribe to Ian Reddit Story. Tomorrow's tale might just be even more powerful.